One. Hello, everybody. Welcome to, well, the fifth dimension returns live finally. We had some technical difficulties on our last show, but we're back live this week, this Sunday, with a really great special guest. But before I go ahead and give him a nice, big, warm welcome, we have, my podcast partner, Dave Schumacher, is with me. Dave, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Matt?
Oh, I'm good, man. I'm
Glad
really tired.
glad to be back.
I may look like I've been through hell and back to the audience and the viewers right now because I didn't go to bed till like 3 in the morning. I got a huge paranormal hangover, as they call it. Especially like the older you get, the harder it is to stay, past your threshold of late hours. So,
For
so
sure.
yeah, excuse my appearance if I have like 500 bags under my eyes, but I'm doing the best I can. So, but we're gonna make the best of it. We're gonna have fun tonight. So, um, before I go ahead and introduce our guest, I just want to let our listeners know that if you guys would like to chat with us at all, we do have a chat room. It's free, and you don't really need to pay for anything or really sign up to anything. You can download the YouTube app. There's a chat room next to the video feed. So if you're watching us on our YouTube channel, there is a box to the right where you can chat with us. If you have questions for our guest tonight, you can throw it in there if you like, if you don't want to call in. If you want to call in, the way to do that is if you are familiar with Google Hangouts, use your Gmail account, log in with Google, and you can hit us up through Google Hangouts, and we can take a call through there. If you want to subscribe to our show, there's a little bell in the top right corner of the screen. There's a little gray bell, an icon of a bell. Just hit that, hit subscribe to our show. We talk about anything and anything paranormal, anything from UFOs, mysteries, Bigfoot, cryptozoology. We talk about ghosts and hauntings, and lots of other subjects. So I'm excited to be back live. Last week I was in Illinois with Dave. I had a great time hanging out with Dave, my podcast partner here. Dave, Chicago was so much fun. I love Chicago. It is nothing like New York.
Well, glad you liked it. We enjoyed having you as guests, and I think we had a good time. Got to go on a gangster tour in Chicago and hit up Bachelor's Grove and one other
Yep.
place. And yeah, we had a good time. It was a good couple
Yeah, it
days.
was great. So, but I was back to work. Actually, I was back to work last week, but anyway, yeah, back to the grind tomorrow. So all right, guys. Without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and introduce our guest. He's here waiting with us. He's been so patient with us because we had technical issues last on our last show, which it happens from time to time. People who are into podcasts and radio over the internet know about technical difficulties. They all know about that stuff. But anyway, I got a gentleman here. His name is Mr. Vince Wilson. I consider him a really good friend. I've known him for a long time. I actually consider him a mentor of mine because back in the day, he actually took me under his wing and pushed me to kind of become a speaker at conferences, and he taught me the ropes pretty much, how to speak in front of lots of people. And he also kind of taught me a little bit about writing, which I failed miserably to do, but I just learned just wasn't my thing at the time. So I just put that in the back burner. And, everything's a learning experience. But Mr. Wilson is a paranormalist, but he does other things. He's a professional hypnotist. He has also written a couple of other books, Ghost Science, Ghost Tech. He's very much involved in the paranormal field and community, doing lots of events and things like mystery events. He does H Home and Jack the Ripper events. I believe he's also very much into magic. And so, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Mr. Vince Wilson. Vince, thanks for hanging out with us tonight.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
So to clarify, I'm not as involved in the paranormal as I used to be.
right.
Yeah. So I don't lecture that much anymore, except for occasionally private events and meetings and that sort of thing. It just sort of became a little disillusion for me for multiple different reasons. But But yeah, so I do some private investigating and research sometimes, and I do keep in contact with other with parapsychologists and other like-minded paranormal investigators. But for the most part, I'm not as nearly as much as I'm not involved as nearly as much as I used to be involved. It's just it's not my thing anymore. It's
Yeah.
more of a private thing as
Hmm.
opposed to anything
Hmm.
else. So yeah, but
Yeah.
but I appreciate the good words, and it's nice to know that our talks had came to fruition at some point.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no,
yeah.
I very much enjoyed your work in the past and the work you've done recently. And I know you're not much involved in the paranormal anymore, but I know you keep a kind of a reach to the paranormal a little bit. But like you said, you've been doing some other things other than the paranormal. So how about you just let our listeners know a little bit like how you got started, what you're doing now, and we'll go from there.
Well, I've always been interested in mysterious things. I suppose you could say is probably the best way of putting it. I grew up in the '70s and '80s, and I used to watch In Search of with Leonard Nimoy. That was an amazing show. You can get that on DVD now, I believe.
Hmm.
And then it was Ghostbusters in the '80s, and show and movies like Poltergeist and the Amityville Horror that kind of got me interested in was there anything out there like this? And truth be told, most of us are influenced in that way from popular culture more than actual paranormal phenomena. When people say, oh, I experienced hauntings in my house and I had this and that, but truth be told, how do you know it's a haunting until someone tells you what that is? There are of course cases of individuals who have experienced paranormal phenomenon and they thought it was, for lack of better explanation, an imaginary friend or something like that. You hear claims of that nature, but for the most part, we really don't know. What people think they may have experienced as children before popular culture tells them. That's usually our first experience with the description or definition of certain kinds of phenomena. We don't know what ghosts are until someone says this is a ghost, which is the information left behind by deceased individual. So
Hmm.
and that is the how we find out. And how I got interested was in 1998. A friend started taking me on ghost hunts. I wanted to know if there was more to it. I got more involved, and before I knew it, I was writing books and doing research myself. And eventually, through Dr. Andrew Nichols of the American Institute of Parapsychology, I became a parapsychologist. And I did some research and papers with that, and then eventually I started doing, as the ghost hunting fad became more prevalent and dominating as far as the type of research people were interested in, the TV shows and things like that. And let's be honest, a lot of your listeners are probably more influenced by that. And hopefully they realize that at some point, or they start looking for, better resources than celebrities for how to do ghost hunts and how
Hmm.
to investigate the paranormal.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
it's kind of sad how that's kind of come to be a little bit because, yeah, it's just like, beating a dead horse and banging your head on the wall. You're trying to get somewhere like with people like us who are more serious-minded researchers. Then you see people like that learning from TV, which, there are some things that, people offer that are different on the table and whatnot. And I'm not thinking anything that they may have something to offer, but it's not the 100% way to learn. The way to learn is to go out in the field and actually do it,
mhm.
and learn from other investigators that have been in the field for a very long time.
Well, let me ask you a question. Let's see if you remember the answer from when we used to talk. Okay.
Okay,
All
well,
right. Ready? This is a test. Let's see if you
uh-oh.
pass. Okay. Are, and this is for David too. You can answer this question as well. Okay. All right. So, are there experts in the paranormal?
um, well, no.
All
To
right.
me, to me, no. But But there's a 50-50 answer in that.
Mhm. Dave, what do you think?
I would say there are experts in subject matter such as psychology, physics, other areas of science that are needed and contribute to the field.
Okay. So in my opinion, the answer is that there can be experts in the paranormal. Okay, there might not be that many experts right now, but there's certainly, an expert is someone with an above average knowledge of a certain topic. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, you said, like, for example, psychologists, as a good example, and that would be a
Sure.
good example of someone who would be beneficial to studying the concept of consciousness survival, the idea that your consciousness and who and what you are survives your death, your bodily death. Okay. Um, However, there certainly are people who have studied, researched the history of the paranormal, the evolution of that study, the people that know what parapsychology is, the study of the mind. They know about people like Harry Price and J.B. Rhind, Carl Zenner, for example, pioneers in parapsychological research and paranormal research. They know of these people, and the evolution of ideas has led to modern day psychic research. Um, and those people can be considered experts. Let's be realistic. There probably is no such thing as a chupacabra, for example.
Right.
However, if you are aware of the fact that a woman in Puerto Rico had made the first chupacabra sighting in the 1990s after seeing the movie Species for the first time, and then you would be someone with above average knowledge of the history of chupacabras. And therefore, you would be an expert on something that does not even exist, more than likely.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the so you can have experts on lots of different topics, but when you go to conventions and conferences and things like that in the paranormal, that comes up a lot. They'll
Mm-hmm.
say there are no experts. That's almost always the answer. You walk
Right.
around any conference, convention, any sort of event that involves the paranormal, walk around and say, are there experts in the paranormal? The answer will be almost always be no, like
Mm-hmm.
an automatic response without even thinking about it, not even stroking your chin and asking or thinking about it for a moment. It's just automatically no. It's just that they've been programmed to respond no.
Mm-hmm.
That the answer are no experts. They said, and they'll say, oh, you're always learning. There can't be experts. It's almost like a rehearsed programmed response to this question. And but the thing is, even experts in other fields, psychology, any kind of field, physics, as you mentioned earlier,
Mm-hmm.
physicists always learn all the time. Astrophysicists are still learning about how the universe works. Everyone remembers, of course, the discovery, the photograph of a black hole that premiered a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
That's the petabytes of data, which is a lot of data, by the way, in case you don't know. But petabytes of data were researched, compiled, and put together to make that photograph of a black hole. And there was a lot of experts working on that, experts on black holes, on physics, on how the universe works. And they're still learning, and they will continue to learn until they die, and then people will take over for them and continue to learn, and yet they are experts. So it's not really a good excuse.
Right.
In my personal opinion, I think the reason that people say there are no experts is not because there aren't, is because having experts in a field requires what?
I don't know.
Dedication, effort, and time,
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's true.
and hard work.
Yeah, that's true too. But there's something you're missing.
I don't know. I feel like playing the Jeopardy song on my end.
You have to deal with repercussions for your research.
Mm-hmm.
All right, does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So if you have experts who can make decisions and say and put together theories and ideas. And certainly all things are open since we don't know for sure. And that's still no reason not to have experts, because experts keep track of all the prevalent ideas. They keep track of the researchers who have contributed. They keep track of the folklore, the myth, the legends, the science, and they correlate all that together.
Mm-hmm.
So experts, by their existence, cause you to have to deal with being observed, being held accountable. The problem is accountability.
Oh yeah.
The paranormal doesn't have accountability. You can say and do anything as far as theory is concerned, as far as ideas are concerned. You can say, and that's fine to some degree, but what about the data you're accumulating?
Right.
Okay, it's okay to have different ideas.
Mm-hmm.
It's supernatural, it's paranormal, it's scientific, it's psychic, it's something we'll never understand. It comes from heaven, it comes from space, it comes from hell, it comes from the fifth dimension. See, I give you a plug right there. Okay, so you have all these theories out there about what these phenomenon are, but and that's fine, but there's also no accountability for how you conduct the research to prove your theory.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the scientific method can still apply to the paranormal. If it does not, then why are you researching in the first place?
Yeah.
If you think ghosts are from heaven, then you don't need to have or belong in the realm of the truly supernatural. Then why are you bringing EVP recorders or voice recorders? Why are you bringing EMF detectors and radiation detectors or any sort of equipment you're using? Why are you bringing any of that stuff? Because it's beyond the realm of science and therefore unnecessary. People cherry pick different ideas and beliefs as far as religions are concerned.
Yeah,
They're favorites from here and there, and they'll say, "I'm Christian," or specifically if you're Catholic. You can't. A lot of Christian concepts, by the way, do not account for the existence of ghosts on Earth. Okay, for example, Catholicism, you definitively go to heaven or hell, and with the extra option of purgatory. And by the way, purgatory is not the same concept as limbo, as developed by Charles Dickens in A Christmas Carol. You do not stick around on Earth and get to interact with people. It is it's like the gate to heaven. You kind of have your sins closed, your soul cleansed, preferably of your sins, before you can go to heaven for some sort of set time period, according to Catholicism. All right, but you're not sticking around interacting with people and haunting houses,
right?
According to how that is interpreted by theologians. So it is not. That is not something you can really reference in that regard. And remember, we're talking about dogma here. So religion is a thing that can be a touchy subject when it comes to the paranormal.
Oh, sure.
So it's not an exaggeration at all.
Yeah. I mean, even to some degree in the paranormal community, like the paranormal has kind of become like a religion in itself to some people, because they just, there's no getting past these people who just automatically believe in the paranormal and just, ghosts are real and spirits are real and all this is real without, any emphasis on real research, and just because it's based on their personal strong belief. So in regards to that.
Yes, it's true. There are several ideas out there. Is it scientific? Is it religious? If it's religious, then you don't need your equipment, because now you're talking about belief. So simply believing is enough.
Mm-hmm.
So why are you investigating?
Yeah.
Dave, why do you investigate the paranormal? What's the purpose of your investigating? What do you hope to accomplish?
Well, really to collect data to make a decision on what's happening. I don't have any preconceived notions. I'm just trying to see if there's something to it and what the cause of these experiences is.
So that's your end game, is knowledge. Is it to prove that ghosts exist to the world, or is it just for self gratification?
It's not to prove that ghosts exist, because I don't know that. I'm trying to collect data to figure out what is causing these experiences. So it's,
Okay.
for me, it's knowledge.
Okay, so it doesn't. So if you would have equal satisfaction if at some point you figure out that ghosts do not exist.
Yep, sure would.
Yeah. And what about you, Matt?
I'm kind of the same as Dave. I'm kind of in it for the knowledge, and you know, my other passion that I've grown to recently is also educating the paranormal community, the younger generations, trying to steer people in the right direction with things from what I've experienced as an investigator and researcher. So in a way, like knowledge is really a big key factor for me as well.
Mhm. So let me ask you a question. What is your preferred voice recording device for EVP?
For EVP. Well, I use an Olympus digital voice recorder. I
Mhm.
actually it's a very costly one. Has an external mic. You can listen to it in real time. So try to like it put headphones on, you can listen to it while you're recording, and sometimes you can pick up things while you're listening to it. So those are the type of recorders I like, because I like experimenting with the possibility that if there is a so-called disembodied voice or a supposed phenomena that you can hear with your own ears, I like to listen a lot. So that's one of my preferred digital audio recorders with an external mic on it.
How long ago did you purchase it?
Um, I'm gonna say I'm gonna wow, probably like 2005, 2006.
Okay, good. All right, because if you bought it recently, I would say you wasted your money. All right. So the preferred voice recorder that everyone should be using, in my humble opinion, okay, are cell phones. All
Really?
right. Yes, let me explain why. All right. Your the current generation of most smartphones out there and available have higher end microphones in them, built into them, than your voice recorder has from 2005.
Hmm.
Okay. That is a fact. Okay. Also, with voice recording apps, you can actually have a higher quality sound file as well. You can export it as a WAV or MP3, depending on what kind of app you decide to download. WAV being, the preferred one because you have a higher wavelength of sound quality. Okay, MP3 compresses your sound, of course. All right.
Hmm.
Um, Also, with the microphone headphone jack that all most smartphones have. I mean, there's few exceptions, and in that case, why are you buying a cell phone so cheap? But the most smartphones have a microphone headphone jack. Okay, so you can add a high-end microphone if you want better sound quality through the jack,
Hmm.
better than you would get from any digital voice recorder, definitively. It's an inarguable fact. Okay. Voice recorders, the digital ones, are holdovers from the previous generation of paranormal investigators. All right. Because cell phones simply did not exist.
Hmm.
All right. That is why we still do them. When I used to do paranormal investigations, and you've seen some of my equipment, I used to have soundboards and microphones
Oh
and
yeah,
hooked up to a laptop computer,
yeah,
which is another important thing. If you
yeah.
have a laptop, why are you using a digital voice recorder? You know why? Because that's what we're used to. The times are changing, Matt, and the using digital voice recorders that fit in your pocket, are obsolete. You can
Right.
do more with your cell phone. In fact, with a cell phone and a cloud-enabled computer laptop, Chromebook for goodness sake,
Hmm.
you have unlimited storage. Never had to worry about storage because you can upload it to the cloud or onto USB thumb drives or onto a SD card or any of the other formats that are available and will be available soon. So with laptops, with cell phones, with tablets, all these devices have made the previous generation's voice recorders completely obsolete and unnecessary.
Now, If you don't mind, Vince, I'm gonna play the skeptic advocate here, if that's okay, with
Yeah,
what we're talking about.
sure.
Um, Now, from a skeptical perspective, with that idea of using cell phones for a EVP recorder,
Mhm.
now one of their arguments is, we're hearing pareidolia, possibly getting, radio frequencies bleeding through our digital recorders or whatever media that we're using to record audio with. So now, if we use cell phones, now would there be a higher probability because of the higher quality audio to pick up more radio frequencies that are bleeding through, if that's what they say is bleeding through?
That's certainly possible, of course, but yeah, you would have a higher. Uh, the thing is, you never want to filter anything. Anything that comes through can be deciphered and run through a audio sampler.
Mm-hmm.
Something that would actually I'm sorry, audio analyzer. Okay, not sampler. Um, you can analyze the and look for telltale frequencies that may have been interfering with it. You never want to sacrifice audio quality for any reason. The if the microphone is giving you more of a range, either that includes artificial sounds and frequencies, then so be it.
Right.
It's something you had to deal with, and it gives you more data. Never do anything that sacrifices data. The reason we use paranormal investigation equipment, EMF detectors, and thermometers is not to detect ghosts directly, but looking for that was never their design or purpose, but to look for changes in the environment that may hint at the existence of the paranormal, not
Right.
actual paranormal phenomena itself. And EMF detector doesn't go off because necessarily because a ghost is present. It goes off because changes in the environment by something we don't understand, some invisible thing may influence existing electromagnetic fields that would influence the EMF detector.
Right. Right.
And don't
Yeah.
forget, once again, what is the most common EMF detector right now?
I'm gonna say a tri-field meter.
That's that's a
Probably the
that's a,
K2.
the K2 meter is the most popular one. All
Well,
right, the
yeah,
tri-field meter might be the best one to use,
yeah,
but the K2 meter is the most popular one. The K2 meter, going on to your line of logic with microphones, is the single worst EMF detector available in the market. It is not a true EMF detector. It does not have the Hall effect chip, which is what more professional and higher end EMF detectors have, which actually differentiates electricity, electrical waves, and radio frequencies from electromagnetic frequencies. So a K2 meter will pick up a garage door opener
yeah,
next door. It will pick up walkie talkies and cell phones and
yep,
everything else. And yes, your cell phone can be, the volume turned down and be disconnected from data and the cell phone service. But let's be honest, no one's going out. People are so used to cell phone and mobile technology today. No one's going into any investigation with their cell phone off. Oh, I got to keep in touch with my kids. What if there's an emergency? What if my husband or wife or boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever calls and I'm not available?
yeah,
We're so used to the modern interaction, we cannot conceive of being disconnected for a moment. And most, maybe some older people can, but certainly not anyone in their 20s and 30s these days. It's mind-boggling for them, for the idea to be away from their phone. So you think you might have an investigator say, "Oh yeah, my phone's off. It's on vibrate in their pocket," and they're interfering with your investigation.
yeah, yeah,
So unless you want to put a Faraday cage at the front door and have everyone physically drop their phones into it
right.
before their investigation, you're probably going to get interference from people's phones. K2 meters are awful. What is your current favorite piece of technology in investigating?
Mine actually, believe it or not, I've been using a piece of equipment called the static meter, made by Paranologies. I don't know if you're familiar with that company that makes paranormal equipment.
Mhm.
One of the ideas is that when something is supernatural, or there's a static charge coming from a ghost or a spirit, that they give off some kind of static charge when they manifest or fluctuate the environment around them.
Mhm.
These so-called static meters are designed to pick up that static charge. And what I like about it is that the lighter the colors represent the weakest energy of the static charge, and the brighter the color, when it goes to like red per se, it represents, the stronger the static charge that is coming. But what I like about it, the static meter, the reason I like it, if you touch it with your own human body, and you're putting your hand around the static meter, you're only even like we everybody gives off static. We all have static. When you
Mhm.
rub a balloon against you and you put it over your hair, you're gonna get static. Depending on the environment around you, the humidity and everything, temperature, depending on temperature changes, is gonna cause static. But what I like about it is if you put your hand around it, you will make it go off randomly, but it's random. But if something supernatural is actually communicating or using or manipulating this static meter, it actually steadily lights up the meter. Like it kind of is a difference between when you touch it versus something that's a possibility of something supernatural touching it. I just find it interesting. I'm not saying I'm not proving that that actually happened, but it's really interesting.
Well,
Hmm.
like I said, this is kind of fun to talk about this, but like I said, I don't really do paranormal stuff anymore.
Yeah.
But I still keep uh, you know track of it a little bit. As far as like you doing it and that sort of thing, and a few other friends. But I really don't do it anymore because it's caused like I don't know, stress. the the it's it's I've certainly become more skeptical, mostly because of the TV shows. So I would say that I'm much more skeptical. I think that probably, assuming the paranormal and psychic phenomenon is real, and that's the thing that does happen,
Hmm.
you're probably looking at 99% of cases having logical explanations.
Hmm.
If you're going into haunted locations like random people's houses, for example, and like every time you go in there, if you're going to places and more than 50% of the time you're experiencing paranormal phenomena, I think it's time to reevaluate your procedures because you're finding stuff that isn't there.
Hmm.
Not every house is haunted. Not most houses are not haunted. You know, if hauntings are real, for the our skeptical listeners, assuming that hauntings are real and ghosts are real, then most homes are not.
Right.
There's all sorts of theories about that. The for that reason that the conditions aren't correct, the environment's not right. You need a certain amount of criteria in order to have a haunting occur. Whatever you believe is fine, but not every place is haunted. Some people disagree with that. They say every place is haunted, and it's just a matter of degrees. But
Hmm.
I disagree with that
Hmm.
personally. If,
Right.
I think but the thing is, like, if people didn't believe they were experiencing things, would most investigators continue to investigate? If they suddenly felt like I'm going to these places and nothing's ever happening, a lot of them would stop because they're
Hmm.
not scientists or hobbyists who watch these shows. So that's why people continue to use K2 meters because they go off all the time. People, to plug your show title again, people don't think fifth dimensionally. Well, actually,
Yeah.
that's adding an extra dimension that's not necessary. Sorry, they're not
Right.
thinking fourth dimensionally. They think of height, length, and width. They might think of the time involved, but they're not thinking outside the confines of their environment. They're not thinking about what's in the walls, what's on the other side of the walls, what's outside the street, what's down the street, what's in their environment, above the ceiling, below the floor, what's under the house, what's the geography of the location, what's the geology of the location. You know, all these factors contributed to readings, false and accurate. Okay. People do not think outside the confines of the environment they are in. They are like big guys in a movie. in which the good guy is just right above their heads, in a ventilation shaft, ready to drop down. The second, because they never thought to look further than right in front of them. You know, all sorts of things give off false readings. Okay,
Sure.
and the investigators are always getting false readings, but they're not going to question it for the most part. The amateurs, they're not going
No,
to
to
question
them,
because
no,
it's fun, exciting, it's interesting.
yeah.
It's keeping them involved. It's
Hmm.
like, oh, it's just like on TV. Look, that even though I'm in a 200-year-old house and there's dust everywhere, that's an orb. That's a face in
Yeah.
there. You know, even though I'm breathing in the sub-zero temperatures, or I was out smoking a cigarette. It's a mist. It's ectoplasm, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
By the way, ectoplasm, everybody, is not real. There is no such thing as ectoplasm. Please stop using that terminology. All right, is a made up thing by spiritualists in the 1900s. That's why when you have a psychic on your group, they don't have disgusting cheesecloth slime coming out of their mouths and orifices, because that is egg whites mixed with cheesecloth that the fake mediums of the 19th century used in order to generate ectoplasm. When you
Well,
see a smoke or mist in the air, that's smoke or mist, or it can be paranormal, maybe, but it's not ectoplasm. There's literally no such thing as ectoplasm.
well, Vince, I want you to take a stool sample of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
A stool sample comes out of someone's butt, Matt. I'm
Yeah.
not going to do that.
All right.
So, Vince, here's a question for you. Since
Sure.
you have some background and training in parapsychology, you're associated with or did some work with Dr. Nichols. How do you think the reports of ghosts and hauntings today that people are investigating, how does that compare to what you see in some of the older literature, like Phantasms of the Living, Census of Hallucinations, or what is it, Poltergeist, the book by Gould and Cornell?
Mhm.
Do you think there's a difference, or are people chasing the same thing?
I think I obviously, well, to be honest with you, parapsychology is a little stagnant right now because there isn't any money being invested in it, or time or effort. So when
Right,
you go to a
but there was
parapsychology,
a lot of work done in the birth of the field through 1920s, 30s. They spent a lot of time investigating spontaneous cases.
so it is.
And a lot of that work, you look at, it's still pretty solid today. And I'm just curious what you think is what people investigate today, how close it is to, what was investigated, in some of those major studies and surveys.
Okay, so are you asking in regards to parapsychologists or the amateur paranormal investigators?
I'm asking the paranormal investigators today, the amateur ones,
Okay,
what they're going out and investigating as far as ghosts and hauntings.
how does it compare to classic literature?
How
Okay,
does that compare?
not at all.
Okay, good.
Yeah, not at all, because they believe they are detecting ghosts and hauntings directly. The parapsychologists never thought that. Not even in the 20s and 30s. Maybe Harry Price was an exception to that rule, but he wasn't really a parapsychologist technically. But he was also not a fraud, like a recent Amazon Prime special had hinted at. He truly believed what he was doing was real research, and he was thinking outside the box. Okay, he was the original ghost hunter and a true ghost hunter. Back in the day. No, they never thought they were hunting ghosts. They never thought they were detecting it directly. They were looking through for changes in the environment and the influence of phenomenon on human beings, as opposed to thinking that an EMF detector is like a PKE meter from Ghostbusters. It is not. Okay, they were looking for explanations, and today they're looking at quantum mechanics and quantum theory. Dean Radin's doing a lot of wonderful research on that, or Lloyd Auerbach is still researching that, and other parapsychologists. The idea that quantum theory, quantum mechanics are somehow responsible for certain types of psychic phenomena by the manipulation of probability fields, the probable outcome for any event to happen. And that could explain why potential energy is converted to kinetic energy in poltergeist cases, for example. It's a theory. It's an interesting theory. And it's but like I said, it's over the heads of most ghost hunters, most paranormal investigators and researchers, because their whole influence circle of influence comes from television shows.
Mm. We're gonna open another can of worms with TV shows, but yeah, um, I like there's good and bad to it. I mean, the good thing to the TV shows that are out there is that what you can do is what you can learn not to do or follow from some of the TV shows that are out there.
Well, I'll tell you, the easiest way to do that is not watch the shows. What not to
Exactly.
do? Watch those TV shows.
Right. So, I mean, like I said, what I said earlier, I think is really good advice. Is just if you really want to learn, go to school, learn photography, learn videography, learn history, learn psychology, or go and learn from an experienced person that's been in the field a while, that has really good knowledge and background in what they're doing, and you can really learn a lot from them. Like, I've learned a lot from Vince. I've known Vince a really long time, and I've retained a lot of things that he's taught me, and from many other people around the field. So that, to me, experience it, like, just experiencing knowledge is really the way to go.
Yeah. Yeah, you're this going back to cell phones for a moment. Yeah, the audio quality is excellent. The storage capacity is virtually unlimited. So hooking a microphone up to it and the soundboard could work. Use your laptop if you want a little bit extra options. But another thing is the cameras on that. The cameras, iPhone. I'm not a big iPhone fan. I have an Android phone myself, but the iPhone and the higher end, like the Pixel phone, for example, from Android, from Google, have cameras that are higher end than most digital cameras you can have. And they're certainly better than the ones that they had, 10 years ago.
Hmm.
My phone right now is a Motorola, and it has a better camera than the digital camera I used 10 years ago. So it's just the technology is improving, and yet there's so much stagnation
Yeah.
in the paranormal. But my advice to paranormal investigators: be extra skeptical, more so
Hmm.
than ever.
Yeah.
You start developing new ideas and
Hmm.
challenge everything, question everything. Do not accept, anything, that you're doing as a fact until you analyze all your evidence, all your research. Apply the scientific method as often and as much as you can, and do not accept anything at face value,
Hmm.
because you're up to, with the as we're getting more and more scientifically advanced, that is what you're up against. It's often been said that if the paranormal is real, if there is such thing as psychic phenomenon, ghosts, and I always say if, to be objective.
Hmm.
All right, if any of this is real, it's probably going to be proven by some quantum physicist, and they should take all the credit, as opposed to a parapsychologist or a paranormal investigator. That's
Yeah.
just something that might happen one day.
Yeah. I have a question for both you guys, for you and Dave.
Okay.
There's an old piece of technology that's kind of come back uh to investigating now. What I find interesting on TV is that now some of these shows are using Polaroid photography versus digital photography, because I think they have the notion that because they're using Polaroid, it's harder to fake something through a Polaroid picture versus digital. Now, because now we have all these kinds of software available where we can edit photos very easily, and they have apps out there where you can easily fake photos and put a ghost on anything. What are both of you? Uh, what are your thoughts on people bringing back Polaroid photography into the field?
Dave, you want to try that first?
Sure. I'm not an expert on photography, and our group did used to play around with Polaroid photography. We had that as part of one of our, photographic techniques, along with, excuse me, normal 35 millimeter, and then of course digital cameras, and never really never got anything on it, but that's just from my experience. I think with the Polaroid, yeah, you can't manipulate it, but you can't manipulate the final picture, but there's still things you can do to the camera and to the lens system to obviously manipulate things. Then you go and look back at some of the old psychic images that were created where psychic would imprint stuff on unexposed Polaroid film. So if you start thinking from that standpoint, it's like, okay, well, maybe if ghosts are using any type of PK and they can imprint something on the medium, that's a possibility. I'm not. Here's the thing. This is my pet peeve, Matt. People are not reinventing crap. They're stumbling across things that have been done before. I mean,
Yep.
the 70s and the 80s, paranormal investigators, parapsychologists were using Polaroid film.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really nothing new. And I think one of the interesting things you should look at is, I believe is it James Horan? He was one of the authors that they looked at photographic anomalies based on the medium. Is it Polaroid? Is it 35 millimeter? And they found that there were certain types of anomalies that were associated with different types of medium. So if you're looking at it from the standpoint of you want to capture or have the possibility of capture different anomalies on different mediums based on maybe that one research article, sure, go ahead and try it. But as Vince was saying, with where technology is today and with the quality of the cameras, even the cell phones, the analytical software you can get, it's really, really getting hard to fake a ghost photo.
Right.
You
right.
can probably have a photo expert, for the most part, identify a fake photo pretty easily.
Right.
Even if it's a Polaroid.
Right.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if
Yeah.
you want to go retro and you want to play around with an old Polaroid camera, hey, go for it. I mean, if
Right.
you're looking at it based on an article that says maybe this medium gives you a different type of anomaly, that might be worth
Right.
taking a look at compared to the newer stuff. But for me, again, I'm not a photographic expert, but
Right.
we've kind of shied away from a whole lot of photo and video stuff
Sure.
ourselves.
Sure. Vince,
Well-
All right, Vince.
Vince, before you give your thought, just real quick, I want to add to that just a little bit, and then I'll hand it over to Vince real quick. Now, the reason I bring that up is because I kind of like where Vince was going with earlier with the TV shows and things. And the reason I brought up the Polaroid thing is because, in my opinion, I think we're getting the same results over and over and over. We're not really getting anywhere, as the new age of paranormal investigating. And I think like we're not, the technology is great, and I think it's really come a long way in certain parts of the field. However, we're still not proving anything. We're not going anywhere with it, and therefore I think we're kind of, if you think about it, like with some of the technology, they're kind of like moving it aside and going like old school again, and they're bringing back stuff that was used back in the day and bringing it forward again because I think they're out of ideas.
Well, that's
or
yeah.
real quick, they think it's new, but they do not know the historical literature.
Right.
Yeah, that's those both. Everything both of you said is 100% correct. So I'll just skip all that stuff in my personal, because I'll just agree with everything. But I also want to add this, as a magician and performer who could easily fake stuff, if I wanted to. All right, if I want to include that in a paranormal investigation, I could probably fool just about any ghost hunter with faking stuff if I chose to do so. All right, and I'll give you an example of Polaroid technology being used by a magician to fool an audience. Not fool, I shouldn't say that word, because magicians don't fool people, they entertain people. If you think you're being fooled by a magician, you're misinterpreting the art of magic. Okay, they're not there to fool you, they're there to entertain you. All right, remember, it's entertainment, not designed to make you look like you're an idiot. Okay. All right. So if you want an example of that, all you have to do is go on YouTube and look up the Sacred Rihanna. Are you familiar?
It sounds familiar to me. Yeah.
Okay. How about you, Dave? You heard of her before?
Nope.
Okay.
Not
All right. So she was on America's Got Talent. Her real name is Marie Antoinette Rihanna Graharani. Okay, she's an Indonesian performer.
Say
Goes
say
by
that name 5 times.
okay. She goes by the
That's why
sacred,
he said sacred Rihanna.
yeah, sacred Rihanna. She goes by the sacred Rihanna. She plays a a creepy ghost-like character on stage. Um, and in one particular episode, I think she's been on the show twice. And in one, she actually used a Polaroid camera to take a picture of a ghost standing behind the judge Mel B in one episode. All right. When she has a Polaroid camera, she takes a picture of Mel B and the audience is behind her, and it's a live picture. All right. She takes the photograph, and sure enough, on that this is a regular Polaroid camera that you can buy and do this with if you know how. And of course, it's not my place to reveal how magic's done. All right. But if you know how, you could do the same thing that the Sacred Rihanna did. Okay, that is not a tricked out camera. It is not it's not a special piece of technology that's built. It's not a custom made thing. It's just regular film in there
Mm.
and a regular camera. All right. Okay. But it is a magic trick and it can be done by anybody who knows how to do it. Okay. And what she did was she used that camera to perform this trick. And if anyone with that sort of expertise were to use that same camera with that same trick, you can make ghosts appear in any environment, in any situation. You know, there's easy ways to psychic projections with Polaroid cameras. You can do that too. I can do that easily. I've done it before for magic shows. Um, and it's you can there's certain ways you can do. There's certain things you can do to project images on the film, to influence the lens, you can make a ghost appear on your cell phone, you can make a ghost appear on a digital camera with simple sleight of hand. It's very easy, unfortunately.
Hmm.
So test conditions must be in full effect when if you know that you might have someone who's an expert in that sort of thing.
Right, right.
No,
Ah,
that's a good point. The test conditions are a good point because just because you can either recreate or fake something doesn't necessarily mean that if somebody got something under legitimate conditions, it's false. It's no good. I mean, the conditions, you're right. It's absolutely critical to have the test conditions to be controlled as well as you can.
Yeah. Remember, even scientists have been fooled into believing that a person was genuinely psychic because they were masterful illusionists or con artists, technically, because illusionists, once again, you're seeing entertainment. When you go to a magic show, you're seeing someone who's doing this for entertainment. A con artist is different. They're trying to convince you that even though they're not psychic, that they genuinely are, that they have supernatural powers and things like that.
hmm.
Yeah, just look up Marjorie the Medium.
Yeah, interesting. And also you can learn a lot from Houdini. Speaking of the great illusionists and magicians of all time. I mean, if you watch the docuseries on the History Channel, which I thought was a great mini series about Houdini and his passion for the paranormal, because when his mother died, he was very much passionate into um, you know, pretty much disproving the mediums being a medium, and he was trying to, kind of disprove them because he was angry about all that stuff and whatnot. But I thought Houdini that series was great. I don't know if you guys ever watched that, but
I did, yes.
yeah,
It's somewhat inaccurate, I guess I have to tell you.
oh yeah, okay,
Yeah, there was a lot of inaccuracies in that. Houdini, for example, Houdini never needed to dislocate his shoulder, nor does any actual straight jacket illusionist do that.
mm-hmm.
Okay, they do escape from straight jackets. I will tell you that.
Right.
They're not. It's not a fake. They're not. But when someone escapes from a straitjacket, they are actually escaping from a real straitjacket using skill
Hmm.
and a mastery of knowledge of how to do escapes. but they are not dislocating bones. That first of all, that is, it's not like in Lethal Weapon where he just, where he just dislocates his shoulder when he wants to.
Yeah.
That is a serious medical problem that you would go to the hospital for every single time.
Yeah.
Even if you like pop it back in, like they try to imply in the films, you would have to have a hospital visit. It causes serious bruising. It can actually cause blood clots that can lead to death.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, dislocating your shoulder for a magic trick, something that is not something that actually happens.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just want to point that out.
Okay.
if a magician tells you that's what they do, they're I'll take their word for it.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So you've been into doing a lot of like mystery events. I know you did an event with I believe you hooked up with Jeff Mudgett recently to do a Jack the Ripper and H. Holmes event, murder mystery
That's
kind
right. It
of
was
thing.
last year in Chicago. Yeah, early
Yeah, how
last
did
year.
that go?
It went
How was
pretty good
that?
actually. Everyone had a great time. They were very educated. They were exposed to different theories and hypotheses on the who Jack the Ripper may very well be. Jeff, contributed his very popular theory that he was, when he hosted the one season of American Ripper.
Hmm.
I believe he's still in hopes that there could be another season one day. It's just like internal differences that caused it not to have a second season because the first season was immensely popular. So that's definitely something that could happen again one day. You might see more of the American Ripper, and I believe he's writing another book on it.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, yep.
Mm.
So it was a hugely successful event. There was a lot of there was a staged trial to try to decide the identity of Jack the Ripper, for example. A lot of things going on for that weekend. Everyone had a great time. It was a wonderful thing. Yep. I'm doing a Edgar Allan Poe mystery weekend in November to talk about the mystery of how Edgar Allan Poe died.
Nice.
So that's going to be in Baltimore.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you don't mind, like let our listeners know like if there's any upcoming events that you're involved with that you'd like to share where
Sure.
people, if you got something big going on.
Well, the biggest thing I got going on is a convention in August called Bizarre Hauntings. Although the name sounds paranormally, it is not. It's actually a magic conference, although it's for mystery performers. So if you're a paranormal investigator or a ghost hunter and you're entertained by that, let's say you watch the ghost hunting shows just for fun, good
Mhm.
for you, and you want to have Houdini was a skeptic who was able to see through fraud and fakery. Having a knowledge of magic and illusion is a great way of doing that. Because the greater your knowledge and illusion, the less likely you are to being faked. And I've certainly had people try to trick me into thinking their houses were haunted. All right. So that my knowledge of magic and illusion has helped me with that. So if you're interested in that, anyone can buy a ticket. You can go to bizarrehauntings.com and sign up today. It's in Baltimore City at the Lord Baltimore Hotel, which is a beautiful historic hotel and a reputation for being haunted. So that is a thing. But the next big thing is Pose Magic, which is a new magic theater performance area in Baltimore City, also at the Lord Baltimore Hotel. And the Pose Magic Theater is in the Baltimore Theater at the Lord Baltimore. Okay, it seats 120 people. Our grand opening is June 1st, and we're having the extraordinarily talented paranormal illusionist that is the mentalist Alon New. Alon will be performing June 1st, and he will read your mind and bend metal with his brain. He's actually one of the foremost metal bending mentalists in the world. Easily on par with the famous controversial figure that is Uri Geller. So yeah, definitely come see Alon on June 1st. You can go to posemagic.com. There's a promotion for tickets are 50% off through Gold Star. So we're very excited about that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Dave, any more questions before we part ways with our good guest here?
No, that was great. Thanks, Vince.
No problem. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Vince, it was an honor, and again, thanks so much for joining us tonight. We're getting down to the bottom of our show here, but Vince, is there anything else would you like to give your closing thoughts on our show?
Well, if I can have 2 more minutes, I'll tear apart another piece of ghost hunting technology for you.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Okay. All right. So the Frank's box, okay, and similar technologies. Do you use those?
Yeah.
Nope.
Okay. Oh, Dave says nope, and you said
No.
yup.
No way.
Okay.
I
So
don't.
here's
I
here's
don't.
interesting. Any technology that has a random number generator is bad technology to use during a paranormal investigation. And let me explain why. Okay. So do both of you believe in the possibility of psychic phenomena, not just ghosts and hauntings, but the idea that the mind influences matter?
Yes, considering I've done a lot of work with just plain random number generators and
Sure. All right.
Bible stuff like
Yeah.
PK. Yeah.
So I'm not going to go into it because I'll make this story too long. But look up the World Consciousness Project, okay, which uses RNGs or random number generators. Okay. So it is um, a scientific fact that reality is influenced by conscious observation based on the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Look that up. Don't have time to explain. Okay. So observation affects reality. So you have a group of people whose deepest desire is to have a paranormal thing happen during their investigation. They want that so bad. They would love a device to say, get out, or a name, or hello, or anything. They're just sitting around hoping that this device will say a word that's creepy and mysterious, and it will um, further exacerbate. Sorry, I'm tired too. I remember I drove like 7 hours today. Their their desire to see something paranormal happen. Okay, so they're sitting around waiting for this to happen with a random number generator that's probably being influenced by, all of random number generators and technology that you have available to the public, by the way, are pseudo random number generators. Once again, don't have time to go into that, but they're not true RNGs. Okay, there's a difference. All right. Explain in another episode one day. Make a note, remind me. Okay, so real quick. So what do you think is going to happen if the human mind can influence RNGs, and you have a bunch of people sitting around wanting something to happen? What do you think is going to happen?
They're going to project it.
They're going to project that onto the device. Hey, that could be a cool,
Yep.
like, parapsychological experiment in a laboratory, but it's bad ghost hunting, bad paranormal investigating. You're not hearing the voice of a disembodied ghost. You're seeing a manifestation of your desires to have phenomenon occur in the box. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yep.
All right, I'm done. That was it for me.
All right. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed our guest tonight, Mr. Vince Wilson. Again, I've known him for a long time. Vince, I think it's been almost 10 years since we've known each other.
Yep, that's right. At
Yeah.
least.
Yeah, at least. Wow. Time flies. But thanks for being part of our show. We're definitely gonna have you on as a guest again. There's just, so much you could talk about in an hour. But we can definitely do it again sometime. Hopefully you come back.
All right. All right. Thanks a lot. Have a good one.
All right, take
All
care,
right. Thanks.
Vince. All
Bye
right,
bye.
bye-bye. All right, everybody. That was Vince Wilson. Hope everybody enjoyed our guest. Dave, any closing thoughts toward the end of our show here?
Just glad to be back and interesting conversation, and look forward to talking to everybody again real soon.
All right, great. So again, hate mail can go to the Fifth Dimension radio show at gmail.com. If you guys would be so gracious to subscribe to our show on our YouTube channel, go to our YouTube channel, the Fifth Dimension Live Video Podcast. Click that little bell, subscribe to our show. That'd be a great way to chat with us during the show. Give us feedback, good or bad. We take criticism well. We'd like to know how we're doing, how the video and audio quality is of the show. Let us know either way. It'd be great. It's greatly appreciated. So, I don't know, Dave, I had a great time with Vince. I hope you did.
Yep. Good show.
Yeah, it was a good show. All right, guys, I'm going to say goodnight to everybody here on the Fifth Dimension live video podcast. Have a great rest of the weekend. Enjoy your Sunday nights, and we'll talk to you next week.